All right, this recording is the presentation that we give to clubs for the rules changes for 2019. So we're just going to go through it. We've got some videos in here that go over some of the changes, as well as just some of the key points that we're stressing for the 2019 season. So just to give you a little bit of background behind the switch and how it came about. Basically, this has been a six to 7 year process where starting in 2012, they, being the USGA and the R&A, got together to figure out how they can simplify the rules. And then over the course of those 6 years, they got to the point now where they have what we see as the new rules of 2019 and the rules modernization project, which it ended up being. And the main reason behind that was that they really determined that the rules of golf are not simple, and that trying to simplify them is one thing that they're trying to do, but to present it as a simplification is not really accurate, and that the rules of golf are complicated because we have millions, or maybe not millions, but thousands of different playing fields, whereas a soccer field is the same length in all countries across the world, or a basketball court is the same length. Golf is a lot different. You have to come up with a lot of different rule situations based on the design of the golf course and everything. So there's a lot more complexity. But basically what they did was they came up with a draft in 2017. In 2017, on March 1st, they released that draft out to the world, and they really, at that point in time, they asked for feedback and evaluation from golfers like yourselves, from club administrators across the country and the world, as well as golf administrators like the GAM and other tours, PGA Tour, LPGA Tour, European Tour, etc., for feedback on the rules that as they had them in 2017. After that 6-month period of feedback, they got together again and took that feedback and finalized the rules as was presented in March of 2018. And so on that committee was obviously people from the USGA and R&A, as well as representatives from the tours and things of that nature, to help to make sure that it was going, or that everyone's voice was getting heard in terms of the average golfer, the professional golfer, and then just the competitive golfer at the state association level, like we see. And then once that was released in March, then in September they came out with the education. So you've seen a lot of videos, some of the resources that we at the GAM have been able to provide to you, our volunteers, but also to our clubs and members. PDFs, videos, things of that nature have been put out, and will continue to be used as we go into 2019. And as 2019 gets going, we'll continue to use those resources that we have available. And the USGA is going to continue to update those resources, as well as include more as we find out what we need to do to educate people better. So there's a couple areas of focus when they set to modernizing the rules or simplifying the rules, whatever you want to say. One of the key points, again, was this simplification. So 34 rules previously, now we're at 24. So a lot of rules have been combined. A lot of decisions that contain rules were taken out of the decisions and put into the rules. But there is there was some overlap and some complexity in the system previously that really didn't need to be there. And so part of this reducing down to 24 rules has really simplified that in terms of the presentation of the rules. One of the other things that they've done is created a player's edition of the rules, which is that small book that so many golfers are accustomed to carrying with them or having with them. And really what this is it was written in the first person. So it's talking to you, the golfer, and it's really geared at the individual golfer. The language is not the same as it is in the regular rules, because it's I don't want to say dummy down, but it's, again, simplified so that the golfer can understand, and it's presented in a little bit different way. Like you would present a topic to a high school student versus a college student versus an adult. This really kind of just a more simple way to educate and display the rules for the average golfer out there. They also are trying to modernize the rules. So some of it is just because the way when the rules were written, the technology that was available was basically causing the rules to be written the way they were. Just an example would be that a ball that was out of round previously, and nowadays that never happens. The ball manufacturing is so good nowadays that these situations are few and far between, and so the rules are adapting to those scenarios. Previously, rangefinders weren't a part of golf 10, 15 years ago, but now it's something that almost every serious golfer has. So technology is changing, and the rules are adapting to meet that technology that's out there in the marketplace. They also have a Rules of Golf app, which they've had for a while now, but this one is a little bit more enhanced in terms of the ability for the user to search within the app to get the answer that they're looking for. So it's very similar to what you see with other apps and other features out there. And so now the golfer, instead of needing to know what rule water hazards or penalty areas are, which we'll talk about, now they can just type in penalty area and it will come up there and it will direct them to the place. And we can envision a scenario, maybe not in the near future, but in the future, where you could take a picture on your phone and it would go and show you the rule for that. Or you could talk into your phone and it would know what part of the book to direct you to. So there's technology out there that the USGA is really kind of putting in the platform to use that technology in the future, whether it's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. And you can see that they've also had a lot of different training resources available, whether it's videos, whether it's presentations like this, write-ups on the website, but they've really kind of worked towards making the training process and the education process a lot more transparent, a lot more accessible to people across the world. And so you'll continue to see assessments. They had the online quizzes that they've had for a while now, but there'll be more and more of this online education, so to speak, because that's the way that they're able to reach those people in the most cost-effective way. And really, that's kind of how training in general is going to, is more video-based or visual as opposed to in person. But so there are some new resources available for that, and they'll be continuing to update those as we progress in the years ahead. Pace of play is a big factor in the rules. So many of the rules, the changes are specifically addressed for pace of play reasons, and you'll see that a couple of examples of the time searching for ball is now reduced to 3 minutes, where previously it had been 5. There's things like the flag stick being allowed to be in the hole on the green and not have it be a penalty if your ball hits it. That's something that's adjusted at or meant to be geared towards pace of play. So there's quite a few changes that are geared towards pace of play, because we know, the USGA knows, R&A knows that one of the key factors of the growth of the game in the future is time. We're all more time constrained than we've ever been before, and being able to do what we love to do, which is golfing, in a less or shorter time frame than we have been in the past, is important to continue to get people involved and keep people involved in the game. Reversing default options. So a couple of the changes, just very small, but for example, rangefinders previously were not allowed unless allowed by local rule. Now we're just flipping it to say that rangefinders are allowed, but they can be disallowed by local rule. And basically this is just a reflection of the reality of the situations out there, where most of the times rangefinders are allowed, and so let's set up the rules to accommodate for the majority of the play rather than the minority of the play. Similarly, the embedded ball rule. Previously, it was only in effect through the green or in the general area when the local rule was put in place. Now it's going to be in effect in the general area but you can limit it to a certain part of the course. So maybe you want to do it in your own fairway. You can do that by local rule, but now it's general that, or it's in the rules that embedded ball rule relief is in effect through the green or in the general area using the new terminology. So speaking of terminology, there are some changes for 2019. Some of them are very simple based, and they're not really going to be any different. Some of them are purposeful in their change, and some of them are just to make it easier for people to understand. Casual water, which if you were to try to explain casual water to a non-golfer, it would be very difficult for them to understand the meaning of casual. They're just changing this to temporary water, which is a lot clearer for people to understand. And again, it really doesn't change how you interact with the casual water in terms of taking relief. It's very similar to the process. It's just going to be called temporary water instead of casual water. Water hazards are gone and will be replaced with penalty areas. So penalty areas are going to be the same thing as water hazards, but there's going to be a little bit more leeway in terms of what golf courses or golf associations or tournament associations can define as these penalty areas. So in Michigan, you'll now see that a lot of the golf courses maybe up north that have the trees lined on each side of the hole, those areas can now be marked penalty areas and be official under the rules of golf. You know, the reality is that we know that these areas have been marked this way already. We go up to these courses and have events there, qualifiers there, and we see them marked this way. And really this kind of change in terminology and more leniency towards penalty areas is really just the USGA and R&A realizing that, hey, this is the reason that, or this is how golf courses are marked. They do it again for pace of play. So it's another reason why pace of play is important. They mark those areas lateral or as penalty areas in 2019 to increase pace of play, so to speed up pace of play. Nearest point of relief is now going to be nearest point of complete relief. So very small difference here, but again, just to emphasize that we are taking complete relief when we're doing this. Through the green, as previously mentioned, is going to be turned into the general area. And so some of these changes, again, are really based on trying to make it easier to understand. Some of the changes, like this one, are just are made because the USGA and the R&A, they want to be able to translate these rules into multiple languages across the world. And so, for example, the green is easily translated for us in English, but for other countries, that's not always the case. So general area is actually easier to translate, which is the main reason why they made the change for this one. Outside agency will be changed to outside influence. Again, is a little bit more easier for people to understand, is that this outside agency is really just an outside influence on the ball, whether it's an animal or a spectator or whatever. It's just really, again, it's just to create more clarity behind it. Abnormal ground conditions will now be called abnormal course conditions. A burrowing animal hole will now just be called an animal hole. So now we don't have to worry about whether an animal is burrowing or not, and you have to be smart enough to know whether an animal is a burrowing animal or not. Environmentally sensitive area is now going to be called a no-play zone. So again, this is just a way to simplify it, also making it easier for translation. But again, that we don't see a lot of ESAs out there, and they had to be defined by government agencies like the EPA or a state administration or association. And so now no play zone is just more generic, that we can say, hey, we don't want people playing from these areas, whether they be environmentally sensitive areas or flower beds that we don't want people stepping on. We can call them a no play zone. People understand what that is. It's common sense. Okay, I can't play from here. That's the reason for this change here. Integral part of the course is now going to be called an integral object. And again, this is really because those integral parts of the the course were really objects, fences, stones, things of that nature. And so it's just easier to translate, easier to understand it as an object. And then these last two are my favorite changes. So you'll see in some of the cases that the words honor and practice are going to be changed to honor and practice. And again, this is just because that's how a lot of the English-speaking world uses these words. So outside of America, you go to Canada, you go to UK, wherever, that's how they spell those words. And so you'll see those changes, but again, it's a overall effort to make these rules accessible for everyone across the world. And really, for us, it doesn't really change. Just makes me laugh every time I see it. All right, so the biggest change in these rules, in my opinion, is the way that we're going to drop the ball. So dropping the ball in the right way is going to be a lot different than what it has been in the past. And the key is that they have to drop it this way. You can't continue to drop the way that they have in the past. Otherwise, we're going to have an issue. We're going to have a penalty. So how do you drop a ball in the right way? I'm pretty sure everyone has seen this, what it looks like. But basically, you're going to drop from knee height. It needs to be dropped by the player, straight down from knee height, and it needs to land in the relief area and stay in the relief area. And so we'll kind of talk about that in a little bit. But basically, the big key is that it has to be knee height. You can see that this girl here, she's dropping it from knee height. If the golfer needs to bend over, they can do that. If they need to get on a knee to drop it, they can do that as well. There's lots of different ways, but it has to be dropped from knee height. And the same common sense things about, it can't be spun or rolled or whatever, that still applies. And then the other thing too that still applies, that the ball cannot strike the player or the equipment before it hits the ground. And after it hits the ground, it can hit a player or your equipment, and you won't have to redrop that, provided that was accidental. If you purposely tried to stop the ball from going into a divot, that would be a different story. Okay, in this case here, the player has dropped the ball. She's dropped the ball from knee height, and she's dropped the ball in the right way. And so here's a quick video on dropping, and we'll show that here.
When dropping your ball under the new rules, the likelihood you will need only one drop will increase, while the randomness of your resulting lie will be preserved. The procedure is simple. Hold the ball at knee height, let go of it so it falls straight down, and make sure that it lands and comes to rest in the relief area. Don't throw, roll, or spin the ball, and don't let it hit you as it falls. To learn more, please visit usga.org/rules.
All right, so when you're dropping the ball and when you're measuring it, or when you're measuring your relief area, one small change, subtle change, is really the definition of a club length. So previously, when you measured in 2018 and earlier, when you measured, that club length was just the club that you laid on the ground. Now the club length is going to be a fixed length. It's going to be a fixed measurement. So it's going to be the longest club in your bag, except your putter, and that's going to be your club length, regardless of which one you lay on the ground. So if you are taking two club lengths unplayable, and you lay out two wedges, your actual relief area, as defined by those two club lengths from the ball, is going to be your longest club in your bag, excluding your putter, regardless of which one you actually use to measure. So if we were determining, another example of this would be if we were determining the player teed off within two club lengths of the teen area, we would use that longest club in the bag except the putter to define the two club lengths for that specific player. So it could be unique to each player, but most players now have a standard length driver, which is going to be somewhere in the 43 to 45 inch length typically. And then again, for most players, it's going to be your driver. In some cases, it may not be, but for the majority of people, it is going to be your driver, because the only club that is usually longer than the driver is the putter, but it cannot be the putter. Okay, so we talked about the relief area. Really what the relief area is, again, is this is in the picture here, the shaded area, but really it's the area which you need to have your ball drop. So first hit inside the relief area and stay in the relief area in order for them to drop the right way. So if it drops and it rolls outside the relief area, the player needs to redrop. And really this is the change for this is really geared towards making it easier for people to understand when they have to redrop. Before, there were 9 scenarios where you had to redrop, and it was difficult for even officials like us to understand or to remember all 9 of those. In this case, it's just the ball has to hit in the relief area and needs to stay in the and come to rest in the relief area after it's done moving. So in this case, the player is just taking relief from an immovable obstruction or that sprinkler. They have relief. They're taking relief from their live ball. Their nearest point of complete relief is going to be where that tee is in the middle. And then from there, because it's free relief, they're going to get 1 club length in either direction. And this shaded pie area here that you see on the screen is that relief area. So they can drop the ball and have it first hit anywhere inside the relief area, but if they rolls out, then they're going to do the same thing that they've always done. They're going to drop the second time, and then on the second time, if it rolls out of that relief area, they're going to place where it first hit inside that relief area. So again, this is kind of the same thing as you've got the ball. The player, again, is going to take relief. They drop, it rolls closer than that tee in the middle there, which is their nearest point of complete relief, which is the reference point in this case. So if it goes closer to the hole than that reference point or outside of the relief area, they're going to redrop on the second time. They drop again. If the same thing happens, they place. So that's not changing. The drop place is not changing. It's just that what triggers a redrop is changing. In terms of this time, is just if it goes outside the relief area. The other time where you would quote, it's not what I would say a redrop, but another time where you would drop again is if when you drop the ball, it does hit your equipment or yourself before it hits in the relief area. Okay, and this is just saying here again what we talked about, the drop place. Another big change is the time you have to search for your ball. So now you have 5 minutes to find your ball. Starting in 2019, you only have 3 minutes to find your ball. Again, this is really geared at pace of play, and again, that clock starts ticking once you, your partner, or your caddy or your partner's caddy are in the area where the ball is likely to be. That's when your clock stops. If there is a certain situation that you had to pause the clock, maybe there was a group that was hitting over you because you were in the other fairway or in the other hole, you would stop the clock during that time, provided that no one's searching for it, to let that happen and then continue the clock there. But the same thing as it has always been, it's 3 minutes. 3 minutes and 1 second, that ball is lost, and the player needs to go back and proceed under stroke and distance. Okay, and again, this is just talking about the search. Again, if there's a good reason, the search time can be stopped, but then it will resume immediately after that good reason has ended. Another example could be that play was suspended for lightning or something like that. Okay, so another change that is I think well received by pretty much everyone, including us rules officials, is now if the player accidentally moves their ball during their search, you can put the ball back and there's no penalty. Previously, if the player or their caddy moved the ball during search, the player was subject to penalty, and so it really didn't give the player the incentive to search for the ball. It really relied on other players or the rules officials or spectators to find it. Now the player has that same incentive to find the ball as they had in the past, and if they accidentally move it, they can just put it back, And the other thing is there is a caveat to this, is that if they're fairly searching for it. And so really we'll get into what that means, but if you do cause it to move, you're going to replace it. The other thing is that if you're not sure exactly where it was, so you're walking around in tall grass and you accidentally kick the ball, but you're not sure the exact spot where it was. Previously, you'd have to estimate it and then drop. Now we're still gonna estimate that spot, but we're gonna place. So we're always, anytime the ball is accidentally moved, we're always going to replace it. And then if the ball was on, under, or against any immovable obstruction, integral object, boundary object, or growing or attached natural object, you must replace the ball on its original spot, under or against such object. Okay, and again, this is just expanding on the point that if we accidentally cause the ball to move during search and we don't know the exact spot we're going to place it, this also applies on the putting green, in the fairway, anywhere where a ball was moved or we're not sure the exact spot. We might hit two drives. The first drive is out in the fairway. The second drive might go up there, and we can see from the tee that the ball's collided. But when we get up there, we don't know the exact spot where it was, because there wasn't a spectator or anyone up there to tell us exactly where it was. In that case, in 2018, we had to estimate it and drop it. In this case, we're just estimating the spot and we're placing it. Okay? And we've always placed it on the putting green. I think that's a common scenario where people have seen a par 3, person hits up there, another person hits and hits their ball. We always know in that case we're estimating it, we're placing it, but that was because it was in the putting green. Really what we're doing is we're just applying that principle to everywhere on the course. So getting back to fairly searching for your ball, really the person has to take reasonable actions to find it. So they can be moving or bending or breaking items only if such breaking is a result of other reasonable actions. So if you're in tall heather and you're moving stuff around and something breaks, that's fine. But if we get to a point where we're going around violently and they're taking out stuff because we think, well, if I find my ball in here, chances are if I hack some of the stuff out, it's going to be an easier shot. Then we get to an area where we're going to have an issue and we're going to have a penalty for improving your lie of your ball or your line of play. So again, it's when you're fairly searching for it, when you're moving your hands fairly and moving your feet fairly. It's not you're just stomping and trying to kick out dirt to make your shot easier. It's just really you're trying to find your ball, and that's all you're trying to do. Okay, and this just says here that there's no penalty if your next stroke is improved when you do a fair search, but if the improvement results from actions that exceeded what was reasonable, you're going to get the general penalty here, which would be a 2-stroke penalty in this case. All right, lifting your ball to identify it. So you've always been able to do this, or at least in 2018 you were able to do this. But now there's going to be one small change, is that you're now not going to have the requirement to announce to someone that you're lifting it. Okay, so you may announce that, but you're not required to. So you can always lift the ball. It's always recommended if you are going to lift your ball to mark it. Actually, you need to mark it. Sorry, it's required that the ball be marked. Okay, and then if the ball cannot be cleaned more than needed to identify it, so this is the same scenario, but we do have that exception on the putting green. You can clean it because the ball is in the putting green. And then if your ball is your ball or another player's ball, it must be replaced on its original spot. So that's why we mark it, because anytime we're going to place it back on that original spot, we need to mark it. And then when we do that, if you lift your ball when not reasonably necessary to identify it, or fail to mark the spot on the ball before lifting it, or clean it when it's not allowed, you're going to get a 1 penalty stroke for doing any of those items. Okay, but again, the big change is that you don't need to make that formal announcement that you're going to do it. You can do it. But again, if you do it when it's not necessary, or you don't mark it, or you clean it when it's not allowed, you're going to get a penalty stroke. Another big change is repairing damage on a putting green, or on the putting green. So there are some items that you will now be able to fix starting in 2019. So you can fix damage that's caused by people. So it could be spike marks, could be footprints, animals, so any hoof prints that are on the green. Typically those were covered under a local rule that was put in place. Now those are just going to be allowed to be repaired as part of the rule. Artificial objects, damage caused by natural objects. So if you have an acorn that's embedded in the green and rolled over by the maintenance crew, you can remove that acorn and fix that indentation there, no problem. However, natural imperfections on the putting green must not be repaired. So an example of this would be what you see there on your right is an area on the green that is just naturally not in good condition. Okay, so that's not caused by any people, animals, or artificial objects or natural objects. It's just caused by Mother Nature, so to speak, or the lack of a budget for the superintendent to have the greens well maintained. Okay, and then the big thing about this is that the repair needs to be done promptly. One of the reasons that this was put in place was to help with pace of play. A lot of times you'll see that players would go up there and ask, hey, is this a ball mark? And now, maybe it was a question if it was a ball mark or a spike mark. Now the player can just go up and fix it, provided that it was damage caused by people, animals, artificial objects, or natural objects. But that takes away the time asking and having someone go up there and check, or a rules official check. They can just fix that damage now. And then again, here are just some examples. You can fix ball marks. It's always the case. Shoe damage, scrapes, and indentation caused by the flag stick. So if there was a damage to the cup, you can go in and fix that. Old hole plugs, those have always been able to be fixed with turf plugs and sod seams. Maintenance vehicle and maintenance tool damage. Animal tracks and hoof indentations, and then indentations caused by embedded objects, acorns, stones, tees, etc. And these are all pictures here of what could be replaced or repaired, sorry. And then again, here are just a couple more. One picture you've already seen, but another one of just a bare area on the green. That's not going to be allowed to be repaired, but in the case of that bare area in the top right, that would be good for the committee to identify that as an area of ground under repair, which they would get relief from. But again, things you cannot take relief from are grass growth issues. Okay, occasional maintenance imperfections like aeration holes and grooves from vertical mowing, natural wear to the holes. So if they only change the cups every 3 days during the shoulder seasons, if there's natural wear around the hole, that's not something that can be fixed. But if it's caused by a ball mark or someone jamming the flag or their putter up against the edge of the hole, you can fix that. Imperfections caused by rainfall or irrigation, and then surface imperfections just caused by weeds, other plants, or natural objects. Those are things that you cannot fix. All right, this rule here was a local rule introduced in 2017, which we used in our competitions, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with. But again, now this is not a local rule. This is just a rule of golf. Is that any accidental movement for the ball on the putting green, that you're just going to put the ball back and there's going to be no penalty. So examples will be bumping your ball with a club, dropping the ball on the ball marker and the ball marker moving, dropping the ball marker on the ball and the ball moving, just put the ball back, moving the ball while picking up your ball marker, and another one, number 4 there, kicking the ball while repairing damage on the putting green. You just place those, just take the ball, place it back where it was, and play on. There's no penalty. Key is this is only for the putting green. If you do these same items in the fairway, there's still going to be a penalty. So again, this is only the putting green here that we're talking about. And again, this is just saying it again. If it's accidental, you're just going to estimate the spot. If you don't know the original spot, you're just going to estimate the spot and place it back. Okay, so here we've got a rule change that really is a change with the technology of the way the courses are prepared. Nowadays, the greens are cut so low that ball can move sometimes when it's on these short areas, or such as greens or fringes. And but we're talking about here, this is specifically for the putting green. So if your ball is on the putting green and it's moved by wind or no apparent cause, aka gravity, okay, and the big key here, and you've marked, lifted, and replaced the ball, okay, and the ball moves, you're going to replace the ball in the original spot, and there's not going to be any penalty. Okay, so if you have to do all three of those things. You have to mark the ball, you have to lift it, and then you have to replace it. And one common example, or one reason why this is put in place, was I believe in 2015 at the Masters, Billy Horschel hit the green on 15, I believe in 2, went up there and marked his ball, and then put the ball back down, walked to the other side of the hole because he had a 50-foot putter or whatever it was to see it. When he did that, when he put the ball back, a gust of wind came up and his ball rolled back into the creek there in front of the green on 15. And under the previous rules, he had to play that as a ball that was now in the water hazard and take relief from that point. And really what this is just saying is that once the ball has an established place in the course, it's established there. And once you've marked it, lifted it, and replaced the ball, it now has that point established. Okay, now if you haven't marked it, lifted it, and replaced the ball, then you're going to play from the new position if the wind or gravity causes the ball to move, and there's still no penalty in this case. But basically, if you were to have the same scenario where you hit a shot up on the green, you walked up there, and then you didn't mark the ball, you walked around to the other side of the hole, and when you did that, a gust of wind came up and blew your ball, you would play the ball from wherever that new position was. It could be farther from the hole, it could be closer to the hole, but since you didn't mark it, it didn't really have that established spot out there on the course. So you're going to play it to where it came to rest after it was moved by wind or no apparent cause or gravity. Okay, another change here is how the flag stick is treated. So now players can decide whether to leave the flag stick in the hole when making a stroke. They've always had the option to do that, but now they can do that without fearing a penalty. So if it's on the putting green, you can leave the flag stick in, and the ball can hit the flag stick and still be okay. There's going to be no penalty in that case. Okay, so here we have an example where the golfer's on the green, goes up there, hits their putt, and drills a flag stick, kicks off to the right of the hole, and they're just going to play it. And really, again, the main reason for this is pace of play, because when you're out there, maybe you're playing with two people and one person's struggling back in the bunker because they are struggling to get out of the bunker, and you're on the green. Instead of having to walk 30 feet up to take the flag out, you can just go ahead and putt without fear of penalty. And I did ask the USGA, what their thoughts on, what were their thoughts on people playing in groups and everyone wanting to do things a little bit differently. The first person that's putting wants the flag stick in, the next one wants it out, the next person wants it in. Could that lead to actually slower pace of play? And they acknowledge that they're not sure exactly how it's going to work out, and I think it'll be interesting to see, at least on the tour level in early January, what they do on respective tours in terms of leaving it in or taking it out. I'm sure that you've all heard of Bryson DeChambeau, and what his plan is to do is to leave it in for every event except for the U.S. Open because of the composite of the flag stick there, which only a mad scientist like him could know the difference between that. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And basically the reason that they decided to leave it this way, or decided to not have a penalty, was because, one, it was going to help pace of play, but also that they determined that there was no significant advantage gained one way or the other, whether it was in the hole or not. We'll have to see what the data says as they put this in play to see if their assumptions match the actual data when golf is played. All right. Previously, you or your caddy or your partner weren't allowed to touch the line of putt or pointing out a line on the putting green. Now you can do that. So specific to this caddy here in the picture, he is touching the line of putt with the flag stick. Before that was not allowed. Now it's going to be allowed. However, the caddy does need to move that before you go up and play. So you can see here that they can touch the putting green to point out where you should aim or how your putt will break. They can use a hand, a foot, or anything that they're holding. However, you or your caddy may not set down any object on or off the putting green to show your aim or break, even if it is removed before you putt. So you can point that out, but you need to move it. So you still couldn't put a water bottle on the fringe on the opposite side of the hole to say aim at that water bottle there. You can point it out and touch it, but you can't put something there and have it stay there while you putt. Okay, so when you putt, your caddy must not deliberately stand in a location on or close to your line of play to help you. Again, this is deliberately they can't. But they can, again, point to where they're playing, but they can't. In this case here, the picture, the caddy can't say, aim at my right foot there. They can take their foot and go out in front of the hole, or even with the hole in this case, and say, why don't you aim right here and touch that area with their foot. But they can't stand and attend the flag like the caddy's doing here and say, aim at my foot. Okay, now, again, this is your caddy. It's also your partner, or your partner's caddy as well. Anyone on your side. Okay, but like I said, the caddy can attend the flag free. It's not saying that they can't do that. That's still an option in 2019. All right. Penalty areas. So we touched briefly in the terminology slide about penalty areas, but penalty areas are really just the new water hazards, but there is an extended or expanded use of penalty areas, or the definition of penalty areas expands to different areas. So everything you see on the page here, the sea, lake, pond, river, ditch, etc., these are all areas that were marked as water hazards, lateral or regular water hazards in the past, and they'll continue to be marked as penalty areas. But there are also now areas that include, if you're out in Arizona or other parts of the world, deserts, densely wooded or overgrown areas. So we see a lot of that, a lot of tree areas. Could be heather, like we see tall grass in the middle picture there. That can be marked as penalty areas now, and we know that a lot of courses have marked these areas with red stakes before in the past, and so it's just really catching up to how golf courses are actually marked. Jungles, lava rock fields, other areas can be marked as penalty areas as well, and really this is up to the committee to decide. So we know as when we're going out and conducting our events and qualifiers this year that we're gonna run into courses that have it marked differently than what we want. And it's on us as a committee to tell players, okay, on holes 4, 5, 9, 13, disregard the red stakes on those holes or whatever. And we've had to do that before, so it's not going to be any different, but we may have to we may have more of that, or we may be able to be a little bit more lenient in certain situations because we have some expanded areas that we can now include as penalty areas for players to get their relief. Okay, so penalty areas can be marked with stakes, painted lines, or you can also use physical features. So it could be maybe where the grass starts and where the desert starts as the area or the line or the feature defining the penalty area. So I know that's what a lot of courses out in Arizona are doing, is they're saying that instead of putting red stakes up everywhere, they're going to say that as soon as the desert area starts and the grass ends, that's going to define what the margin or the edge of the penalty area is. And again, this is really up to the course on what they want to do, or the tournament committee on how they want to mark it. But you have those options. Okay, when stakes are used, it's going to be the outside edge at ground level to determine the edge of the penalty area. Again, it's when you think of outside, think of it as the side that's closest to the golf course. Okay, and then the stakes are in the penalty area in this case. Okay, painted lines, which you see frequently with our events. The outside edge of the line is the outer edge of the penalty, or the edge of the line that's closest to the golf course. And if your ball is on that line or touching the line at all, then the ball is in the penalty area. And then here are just physical features. Again, it could be a desert area, a wall, a fence, a mow line, or a cut line. But really, it's the committee that is going to define what that is. And that's going to be put and sent out to players so that they know and they're aware of how that's defined. So just like before, we're going to have two different types of penalty areas, or under the 2018 water hazards. There's going to be, instead of it being lateral and just lateral penalty area and penalty area, we're really trying to simplify it, and it's just going to be red penalty area and yellow penalty area. Okay, so what most people know them as, we're just going to use the colors that people already know to try to make it easier for people to understand. Okay, so with the yellow, we're going to have our same two relief options. Okay, and we're also going to be able to play it as it lies, but we're going to have those two relief options. Red, we're going to have 3 stock relief options, which is changing. So previously we had 4, and we're going to take away one of those relief options, which we'll go over here in a sec. Okay. And if the color has not been marked or indicated, then it's going to be treated as a red penalty area. Okay, so the same principle in terms of making sure that the ball is in the penalty area is going to apply in 2019. So we still have to have that known or virtual certainty that the ball is in there, or that we see the ball in the penalty area. So in that top example, we can see the ball right there. We know it's in the penalty area. Whereas in the second example, we might have knowledge or virtual certainty. It could be from a spectator seeing it go in. It could be that there's nothing else. If you look at that picture in the bottom right there, there's really nothing else that could have prevented the ball from going or from not being in the water in that picture. So if they go up there and they search for it, we have that knowledge or virtual certainty the ball's in there, because there's really nowhere else it could be. And really, when we think of knowledge or virtual certainty, what we're saying is that there's conclusive evidence that the ball is in the penalty area. Okay, so we're going to look at things around there, if there's any trees, tall grass that might prevent it from going in the penalty area. But then we're also going to kind of put a number to it and say that if it's 95% or more likely that their ball is in the penalty area, which is just allowing us to say that there is there could be the chance that it's not in there, but we're at least 95% sure that it is. So an easy way to think about that is that if you hit that shot 20 times, is it going to be in the water 19 of those times, or in the penalty area? I shouldn't say water. It could be anywhere, but basically 19 out of 20 is what we're looking to get there. Or if we can see it in there, that's even better. All right, so our red penalty area, like we said, we have 3 relief options. Okay, so we're going to go back. We can always go back and play under stroke and distance. Okay, but the stroke and distance option is a little bit different than it has been in the past. So previously we would go back to the last spot where we played and drop from there. Now we're going to still go back to that last spot, but now we get 1 club length in any direction in which to drop from that area. So that 1 club length drop area or relief area, as it's termed now in the new rules, is going to be a little bit different for stroke and distance because we've always gone back to the spot. Now we've got this larger relief area in which to drop. Okay, back in a line relief. So here we've got our point where we have where the ball went into the red penalty area. So we have where it last crossed the edge of the penalty area there, and that first arrow. And then our X point here is going to be our reference point, is what we're calling it. Basically, from that reference point, we're going to go. We're going to take 1 club length from that reference point in either direction and drop in that shaded area, and that's going to be our relief area. So you'll see that it's a little bit different than the past because we've always gone back. Our back on a line relief is really always been the flag and where we last cross the edge of the penalty area or where that red arrow is, anywhere on that line back. But previously we had to drop right on that line. Now we have an expanded area or relief area in which to drop in. And so we're recommending that players mark this X that you can see in the middle there. That X is the reference point, and they mark that with a T so that we know if the ball rolls outside of that area that we have that reference point to determine what the relief area is. So this is going to be an education process for players because most people aren't used to putting a T down in this case, and we're going to ask them to do it. It's not a requirement. It's just something that we're going to ask them to do. Or if they don't want to do it, we're just going to make sure that they are dropping far enough back from where that spot is so that we don't have a situation where the ball rolls forward a little bit and we have to come in there and say, well, is it closer than that reference point or not? And it's a little complicated. We'll cover that more. But the big thing with the back and the line relief is that it is you have more than just that exact line in which to drop on. You have that 1 club length relief area based on that reference point of that X there. Okay, and then we can take lateral relief, which we're taking our 2 club lengths from where the ball last entered the penalty area, and no closer to the hole, and that those 2 club lengths and that shaded area back to the penalty area line, or the red penalty area line, is going to be our relief area in which we can drop. It's a little confusing. This golfer here in the picture is left-handed, so he is hitting at us, which is why the relief area shaded is behind him. And it looks like it might be closer to the hole, but it's really not because he's left-handed. Okay, so again, stroke and distance, we're going back to where we last played from, but it's within 1 club length of that point either way, and we have that area in which to drop in. And then back in a line relief, again, we're still finding where we last cross the edge of the penalty area, which is where that arrow is. And we're going to go back in a line with the flag and that point as far back as we need to. But really that reference point is where that X is. Where that X is. And we get 1 club length in either direction in which to drop there. Okay, and then lateral again, it's exactly how it is now. You're going to find out where you last crossed the edge of the penalty area, take your 2 club lengths, and you get that area back to the line there is going to be your relief area in which to drop. Okay, and then this again is just saying that, again, just pointing out that that reference point is that point that X there, and that's going to determine our relief area. And we are going to recommend that people put a T in the ground where that reference point is. But we still need to know where we last entered the penalty area. We last crossed the edge of the penalty area, which is at that top arrow spot there. And now, one thing we didn't talk about, but is still an option under no penalty, is you can play the ball as it lies. So this player here, she's in well, in 1998 she was in a lateral water hazard, but if she was playing in 2019, she would still be allowed to take off her shoes, go in there, and hit the shot, and without penalty. A couple things though that are different now in terms of grounding your club and some things that you can do in penalty areas. So there is some more relaxed rules. So now you can remove loose impediments in a penalty area, and provided that it doesn't cause the ball to move. So if you've got a pine cone that's resting up against your ball and you move it and your ball moves, you're going to have a penalty for doing that. So there's not complete change there, but if the pine cone is a foot away from your ball and you move it, that's no problem. You can remove any loose impediments. Okay. But like I said here, if you do cause the loose impediment, if you do move it and moving it, you cause your ball to move, you are going to have a penalty. Okay, and in that case, you would just get a penalty of 1 stroke, and you need to replace the ball. So again, some things that loose impediments are, they're natural objects that are not attached to anything. They're no longer part of something growing. They're not solidly embedded in the ground, and they cannot easily be picked out of the ground. And they can't be sticking to your ball. So you can see that these leaves here, pine cones, pine straw, stones, a big thing, stones and bunkers are now, we'll get the bunkers, but stones are going to be loose impediments, and that will now be allowed. So you can remove those without penalty, whether a local rule is in place or not, as was previously the case. Okay, and then again, just some common examples of loose impediments: stones, loose grass, leaves, branches, and sticks that are not attached or growing to a tree or a bush, pine needles and pine cones. Other items that are also loose impediments include worms, insects, and spiders, living or the dead spiders, and mounds and webs made by them, clumps of soil and sand, but not loose soil or sand, and animal waste and dead animals are also loose impediments. Okay, so again, another thing that you can do in a penalty area is you can touch the ground at any time, so you can take practice swings. It'll be something that we'll probably get called out on for sure. Someone will say, hey, they grounded their club in the penalty area. That is going to be allowed in 2019. So that's players can do that. However, they can't do it to improve their next stroke or their line of play. So there's still that recommendation that if you're in a tall area with a bunch of tall grass, you can take practice swings, but do so a little bit away from your ball so that it's not being seen as you improving your lie or taking out things that might be in the way of your ball. Okay, so the red penalty area, there were 3 relief options. There used to be 4 for lateral water hazards, and the one that's been taken away is this opposite side relief. And basically the reasoning behind this is that because of the increased use of penalty areas, marking things more than just water, they really wanted to limit people to have the option to take this opposite side relief, because when we start thinking about more objects being marked, there could be more people taking advantage of this and or getting a significant advantage and not having to cross the water or cross the area So really, what they've done is that they've just eliminated this. And most golfers, if you ask the average golfer, they had no idea what this is. It's even hard for rules officials to understand a lot of different cases. But basically, this has been taken away. There is an exception that you can put it in play with the local rule. So if there's a part on your course or a golf course that it would be a good idea to have this in there, you can put in the local rule saying the opposite margin or opposite side relief option for a red penalty area on hole number 16 at Forest Lake will be in effect. That's something that you can do, that the club can do at the local level, but again, it has to be put in at or as a local rule. So again, just so that everyone knows what it is, previously what it was is it was just you would find a point on the opposite side of the margin, equidistant from the hole, and take 2 club lengths from that point and drop there. So in this case here, if the player's ball crosses on the right side there, they could go to the left side. Really, the main reason for using it would be if you hit on the left side, hit the tree and bounced in on the left side, you could go to the point on the right side of the penalty area and take 2 club lengths and drop there. But again, this has been eliminated, except if you want to put it in by local rule. All right, so bunker. So the definition of a bunker has changed a little bit. And this picture here, this graphic, is really a great way to explain what is in a bunker and what's not in a bunker. So really, everything here that has a check mark in it is in the bunker in 2019 and was in the bunker in 2018. The only thing that's changed is that the surface or the wall or the face of the bunker, which you see up near the front of the bunker, is now not part of the bunker. So that ball that's in the face or the wall there is now not in the bunker, whereas previously it was. And really, one kind of thing to think about with this is that really the place where it came most into play was the restriction on people being able to ground their club in bunker. And if a player was up against a wall, if they took their backswing and they hit the wall, the bunker, that they would get a 2-stroke penalty for that. Now, in 2019, they're not going to do that. And it also changes, relief options. If your ball is in the wall there or the face of the bunker, not in the bunker, if you're going to take an unplayable, it's going to change your options a little bit on how to do it, because you're not in the bunker, you can take relief outside the bunker. All right, so some things inside the bunker have been relaxed, so you can remove loose impediments in a bunker. Again, it's provided that when you do move those loose impediments, that it doesn't cause your ball to move. If it causes your ball to move, you're going to get a penalty of 1 stroke and you're going to replace the ball. So this golfer here, she's picking up the leaf, which is not touching her ball. She removes that. It's not going to be a problem in 2019. When your ball is in a bunker, you do get a penalty if you test the condition of the sand. So you're not going to be able to take practice swings in the bunker prior to you playing out of it. Okay? So you can't test the condition with your hand, a club, a rake, or any other object. So if you took a rake in the bunker and stuck it in there to try to figure out how soft or how hard the sand was, that's still going to be a penalty as it was in 2018. And then you can't touch the sand with the club right behind or in front of your ball, or as you make a practice swing, or as you make your backswing for a stroke. So all that is still the same. So you still can't do that. And that would be a 2-stroke penalty if we do that. Okay, now it's not going to be a penalty though if you touch the sand when you dig in with your feet to take your stance. Okay, lean on a club to rest, stay balanced, or prevent a fall. So a little bit change there. If you lean on the club to rest, so if you're just standing and you have your club head touching the ground and you're just using it there, resting or waiting for someone to play. Previously, that was a penalty if you did that. Now it's not going to be a penalty. It was never a penalty, or it wasn't a penalty in 2018 if you touch the sand to prevent a fall or to stay balanced. So that's still the same. If you place or toss your clubs, your equipment, a rake or other objects in the bunker, that's not a penalty. That wasn't a penalty before. It's not going to be a penalty now. And this is not a change as well, but taking actions permitted by the rules, such as measuring, marking, lifting, or replacing. If you touch the sand in those actions, that's okay. No penalty. If you smooth the bunker to take or for care of the course, that's fine as well. And then this is a little change here. If you strike the sand in frustration or anger, even though this is considered poor etiquette, that is not going to be a penalty. So famous example of this, I believe, was with Michelle Wie. She hit a bunker shot, stayed in the bunker. She got angry, tossed her or had her club in her hand and hit the sand in anger. She got 2-stroke penalty. Under the 2019 rules, she wouldn't get a penalty, although it would be poor etiquette, which could be penalized if the association or the club has a code of conduct policy in place. So really, now we're going to move to unplayable ball, and really the main change with the unplayable is going to be when we get to bunkers. But as always, you can take an unplayable ball relief anywhere on the golf course except for the penalty area. So that really hasn't changed. It's just instead of it now being except a water hazard, it's going to be except the penalty area. You can take it in the general area, in the bunker, in the teeing area, or on the putting green. Anywhere that the player is the sole judge as to whether it's unplayable. But again, it's not. You can't take an unplayable ball when your ball's in the penalty area. In that case, you just need to take relief under the penalty area relief options. So when your ball's in a bunker, we're going to talk specifically about a bunker here. When your ball's in a bunker here, you've got stroke and distance here. You can go back to where you last played from. And a lot of times this is going to be outside the bunker, but you can see here that you've got that X is where we last played from. And we've got 1 club length in either direction in which for us to drop. And so that relief area, that stroke and distance relief area is going to be the same regardless of the rule in which we're taking relief from. So we saw it previously with the penalty areas. Now we're seeing it here with the unplayable ball. And then back on a line relief, again, we're going to take the point where the ball is and the flag and go back on that line as far back as we want, and then drop we're going to find that reference point and then take 1 club length in either direction. That's going to be our relief area. If it's in a bunker, though, we need to stay inside the bunker when we're taking relief using this option. Okay, now if we weren't in the bunker, we can go back and drop in the fringe like you can see in the picture here. And then likewise for lateral relief here, if we're not in the bunker as we're in the picture here, we're just going to take 2 club lengths from where the ball is, no closer to the hole. And that 2 club lengths from either direction, either side of the ball is going to be our relief area. It's the same thing in the bunker, but if our ball's in the bunker, our relief area is restricted by what is in the bunker. So we can't take 2 club lengths and drop outside of the bunker in that case, if our ball is in a bunker. Okay, so we do have an additional option here. I'll just show you in a quick video here, which will allow us to get out of the bunker using an additional relief option.
When you decide your ball in a bunker is unplayable, under the 2019 rules, you have an extra option that lets you drop back on the line outside the bunker for a penalty of 2 strokes. Imagine a straight line running from the hole through where your unplayable ball is. Identify a spot on that line as far behind the bunker as you like. Measure or estimate a 1 club length wide relief area on either side of and behind that spot. Then drop a ball in that area. Your dropped ball must land in and be played from the relief area. To learn more, please visit usga.org/rules.
All right, so again, that's an additional relief option if the ball's and you're taking unplayable relief when your ball's in a bunker. it could be for a lot of the clubs that I've been to. This has been a really big hit with a lot of the players, especially the ones that struggle from the bunkers. But you can imagine a situation where you could see it in the British Open as well. If you're up against a lip and the only play you have is to play it backwards or play it in the bunker, you might be better off just taking it out with 2 strokes and just getting away from the bunker completely. So again, it's a 2-stroke penalty if you use this option. So the relief kind of fits the amount of strokes that you're receiving. So it's not the same as the other relief options because it is an additional penalty stroke. All right, here's another video that talks about a rule that's available to clubs and associations to put in play. So at the GAM we have been using this maximum score for our golf days, our member days. We've had that at 9, and that's our plan to continue this. But now we can do it under the rules of golf and have it be okay. And it's something that clubs can do. I know that I believe the high school is going to be doing a maximum score of 12. I believe is what they recommended. And I believe that's getting close to finalized. But here's a quick video on maximum score and how that works.
The 2019 rules include a new form of stroke play called maximum score. Under this alternative form of play, a maximum number of strokes are set to cap a player's score on each hole. Examples of maximums include net double bogey, 2 times par, or a fixed number, such as 6, 8, or 10 strokes. This means if you pick up your ball without finishing a hole, you get the maximum score for that hole.
No more, guys.
To help pace a play, you are encouraged to stop playing a hole when you reach the maximum, or you realize a score of less than the maximum will not be possible. To learn more, please visit usga.org/rules.
All right, so again, with maximum score, it's again set on either a fixed number or par or handicap. So the examples was 2 times par or net double bogey or a fixed number. And it's really up to the committee on what they want to do. Again, we're only going to be using this for our golf days. There has been some talk about some junior events putting this in place, but we haven't made a decision to do that quite yet. Just because I think the main fear is that you get to the last hole of the tournament and a player is up X number of strokes. Let's say they're up 6 strokes, and if the worst they can make on a hole is an 8 and it's a par 4, the player doesn't even need to play the last hole to win the tournament. They can just take the max score and sign their scorecard and be good, which in my opinion takes away from an event. But for some events that's never going to be the case, and this is a way again to help with pace of play. All right, this is another local rule, or a local rule that clubs or associations can put in place. It's not a rule of golf. So for the GAM competitions or championships or qualifiers, we are not going to be using this. But for our golf days, it looks like we are going to be using this. And really the premise behind that decision was that the USGA recommended to us that we recommend it to clubs. Again, this is really driven to help pace of play. So that's kind of the way we're leaning right now with this local rule. But again, it's not going to be used in our competitions, whether it's gross or net championships. So really what it is you can see it deals with 2 situations where your ball is either out of bounds or lost, and it's really just an alternative to stroke and distance. Instead of having to go all the way back and play, the players here can get their ball in play, drop, and move on with the appropriate penalty. So it is going to be a 2-stroke penalty. It's not going to be like ladder or a penalty area where they're taking lateral relief and getting away with just 1 penalty. It is going to be a 2 penalty. or 2 penalty strokes. But basically what you do is, let's start with the out of bounds scenario here, the one on the left, is you find where you crossed you last crossed the margin of out of bounds, so at point A there, and then you're going to go to a point you're going to find the nearest fairway edge, so that's point B there, and then take 2 club lengths from that point. That's going to be your outer edge, and you're going to go on a line back with the hole, and using that out of bounds area, the point from A, to create the shaded relief area, which is marked by C there. So you can see that the points that you're really using are that A and then 2 club lengths from point B to determine that relief area. So it might not be super intuitive, but once you see a picture of it and see how it looks, it does kind of work that way. Work out to be fairly intuitive after seeing it. So a little bit harder to explain, but seeing it really brings it to life here. And you can see basically the point is that a player hits it out of bounds A, they're going to go to the nearest edge of the fairway, take 2 club lengths, drop the ball in the fairway. You know, they're not always going to drop the ball in the fairway. They may choose to drop it in the rough because they have a better lie. Could be a nasty lie in the fairway, side hill lie or something like that, where it would be a difficult shot for them. So it really, they have a huge relief area there in which they're dropping. So they have a lot of flexibility. And the same thing's going to happen here with the lost ball. So in a lost ball, we don't have an exact spot, whereas if it goes out of bounds, we know where it crossed, or we can estimate where it crossed. But when it's lost, we're going to estimate where the ball was lost. We're going to take 2 club lengths from that point, so that's point A. Okay, and then we're going to go to the nearest edge of the fairway, point B there, and take 2 club lengths from there, go back in a line with the flag from those end points, and that's going to be our relief area, which is determined by the shaded area C there. So again, this is something that you can use at the club, or the clubs can use if they want. But again, it is a 2-stroke penalty, so it's not just your simple 1 stroke. So basically, if you think about it as an example, you hit one off the tee and then goes OB. You go up and you find point B, which is near the fairway. You take 2 club lengths, you drop in the fairway there, and then you're going to be hitting 4. So it would be essentially as if you're hitting a second ball and you end up at that point in the fairway. Chances are you could end up in a worse place if you were to hit a second ball. You could end up in a better place. So it's really kind of hit or miss, but it's recommended that it not be used for higher levels of play, and that's why we're not going to be using it. And there's even the flexibility at the club level to allow it for certain events and not others. So, you know, if a club asks us for advice, you know, we would probably tell them, hey, for everything but your club championship, you probably want to use this. Or the club might say, hey, I don't want to use this at all. There's not many situations where this really comes into play, so I'm just not going to use it. Or they might just say, you know what, we don't want to confuse our members, so we're just going to use it for everything. So really, it's up to the club to put the local rule in, or the association, and it's really if they want to do it or not. I would say this is probably the most controversial rule, new rule, and it's really, again, it's not in the rules, it's just a local rule, but I think this is one that got the most buzz when it was announced initially. All right, a few other things that have changed here. So an embedded ball rule. So again, the definition of embedded ball is not or has not changed. It needs to be in its own pitch mark, made as a result of your previous stroke, and part of the ball needs to be below the level of the ground. Okay, now it doesn't say your ball does not have to necessarily be touching the soil. So you can see here in the pictures at that last, the second picture there, the ball is actually not in the soil, but it's still embedded in its own pitch mark. Whereas you have the last example where it's in there, but it's not embedded in a pitch mark. It's just resting deep in the grass there. Anyways, the relief is going to be a little bit different, and really this just goes back to how we're defining relief areas and how we're going to try to make that consistent from every relief procedure that we have now. So you're going to find that spot. The player can obviously clean the ball, and then really that relief area is going to be identified by where the ball is embedded, and you get one club length in either direction. No closer to the hole in which to drop it. So really, it's just saying that before we used to tell players try to drop the ball as close as possible to where it was embedded. And we know every player under the sun never listened to us and was saying, "Oh, I'm not going to drop it in there because I don't want it to go back in the hole." Even though we would tell them, "Hey, if it goes back in there, we'll give you relief," they would drop it a foot or whatever away so that wouldn't happen. And now they'll be able to do that under the rules where they can drop one club length. That's their relief area in this case. Okay, but again, embedded ball relief is available in the general area now without a local rule. It's just anywhere in the general area, but there's no free relief in bunkers, penalty areas, or naturally sandy areas in the general area. So if you were at a course in South Carolina or something like that, I did an event at Keel Island, and there's a lot of sand there at the course, and the player's ball was embedded in the sandy area that wasn't a bunker. That player did not get relief from an embedded ball because it was embedded in natural sandy areas. So you're still going to you can see here that you got that reference point is going to be that spot right behind where the ball is embedded, and then we get one club length in either direction, and that's going to determine our relief area. Okay, and then because we're taking embedded ball relief in the general area, the relief area needs to be in the general area. So if a portion of this perfect one club length half moon or semi half circle was in a bunker or in a penalty area, that portion of it would not be the relief area. All right, the ball hits you or your equipment. You do not get a penalty anymore. So again, and let me preface this is accidental. So if it accidentally strikes you or your equipment, there is no penalty. It also includes double hits. So if you accidentally double hit the ball, you're just going to play on. There's not going to be a penalty. Now, if you purposely put your equipment on the other side of the bunker because you know you're a terrible bunker player and you scull it out of there and you hit your bag, that's going to be a penalty because you purposely put it there. But if you put it somewhere and you accidentally shank the ball and it hits your bag, not a problem. Or if it hits the lip of the bunker and comes back and hits you, no penalty. You're just going to play it as it lies there. So substitution is a little bit. You're going to be able to substitute a little bit more than you have in the past. So you can substitute a new ball anytime you're taking either penalty or free relief. Okay, with one exception, if you're taking relief from an embedded ball rule on a putting green, you're not able to substitute a ball in that case. But any other time, so if you're taking relief from cart path, you can substitute a ball there. If you're taking relief from penalty area, you can. Those are all areas where you can substitute a new ball. When you cannot substitute a new ball is when you have to replace your ball in its original spot. So replacing your ball on the putting green, replacing your ball after accidentally moving it during search. These are all going to be areas that you cannot substitute a new ball. All right, restrictions on caddies standing behind players. So we'll have to deal with this with our events that have caddies, but once a player begins taking their stance for a stroke and until the stroke is made, the caddy cannot stand on or near an extension of their line of play. So this is an automatic penalty and cannot be avoided. So this is going to be something that we're going to stress to people or to caddies when we have those caddy events because it is different. Again, there's still some caveats here. So on the putting green, you can avoid penalty if the person backs away, and then you retake your stance without anyone there. So that's one exception where it's going to be okay. And then the other exception is really when a player or a caddy accidentally does it. If they don't know what they're doing and they happen to be back on a line extended, that's fine. Again, if they purposely or deliberately do that, then we're going to have an issue. So here's a quick video to explain this.
The rules permit you to freely exchange advice with your caddy or partner, but you're required to act alone when making a stroke. Under the 2019 rules, once you start taking your stance for a stroke, neither your caddy nor partner are allowed to stand behind you. To learn more, please visit usga.org/rules.
So you can see that it is. It also applies to partners as well. And really, once they talk about once they start taking your stance, it's really once you take that first step in towards taking your stance. So once you make the movement, that's when your stance taking starts, so to speak. And for those events that have caddies can now mark the ball on the putting green without the player's consent. So here's a video explaining that.
Under the 2019 rules, when your ball is on the putting green, your caddy is allowed to mark, lift, and clean it, with or without your approval. If your caddy has marked and lifted your ball, it can be replaced by either you or your caddy. To learn more, please visit usga.org/rules.
And this change is really just because it's a very common practice in other parts of the world for caddies to go ahead and mark and clean balls and put them back and have them ready for the players to play by the time they get up to the green. And really, we're just trying to make it the same for everyone across the world. And really doesn't have any impact on the actual result or playing of the event. So that concludes this presentation. We'll continue to provide updates. We're going to do our Wednesday rule sessions and other training opportunities. But as we get resources from the USGA and the R&A or any other source out there, we'll definitely pass them along. Appreciate you taking the time to watch us and wish you the best of luck out there in 2019. I look forward to seeing you out there. And if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. Thanks.